Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's webinar, Protect Veterans from Scammers. My name is Elizabeth Aloni. I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company in the Metro New York area, where we publish over 80 newspapers, magazines, webinars, websites, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, Westchester, Long Island, the East End, Philadelphia, and now even Palm Beach, Florida, a little bit out of New York. But today we are certainly thrilled to be able to welcome these extraordinary individuals who are going to speak with us, because veterans deserve many things. They deserve praise, they deserve honor, they deserve security and respect. Here's what they don't deserve: attempts to take advantage of their service. Yet every day, scammers attempt to swindle our veterans of their hard-earned benefits, steal their identity, take their life savings, and worse. Operation Protect Veterans, a joint program of the AARP Fraud Watch Network and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, helps active military and former service members and their families to protect against fraud. Today, our panelists will shed light on how we can protect our beloved veterans. So let me introduce our panelists today. A warm welcome to Inspector Carroll Harris. Inspector Harris has over 30 years of government service, with 17 years as a federal agent. He joined the United States Marine Corps in 1990, where he served over 10 years of active duty and 20 years in the reserves, to include mobilizations and overseas combat deployment. Inspector Harris serves as a federal agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration from 2004 to 2008. In 2008, he answered the call to become a postal inspector. Inspector Harris worked multiple assignments to include identity theft, mail theft, narcotics, and workplace violence. In 2021, he was named inspector in charge of the Los Angeles division, where he manages an authorized complement of 162 inspectors, postal police officers, and professional, technical, and administrative staff. Inspector Harris holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Old Dominion University, a Master's of Business Administration degree from Butler University, and a Master's of Operations Science degree from the Marine Corps University Command and Staff College. Wow. Welcome, Inspector Harris.
Great to be with you. Thanks for letting me come.
Absolutely. I'm a fangirl after reading all that. Amazing.
Well,
Next, please welcome the wonderful Bernard Macias. Bernard has been the AARP Associate State Director for Long Island and New York State since 2015. Bernard works with members, volunteers, and staff on issues important to the 50-plus population and AARP's 2.6 million New York members and their families. In this role, Bernard oversees community outreach and engagement, local member experiences, federal, state, and local advocacy organizing, and directs the island's more than 400 very active AARP volunteers and its membership of close to 500,000 across Nassau and Suffolk County. Bernard has led many successful AARP campaigns and virtual live events in New York State on fraud and scam prevention, veterans, financial education, caregiving, work, and jobs. Before joining AARP, Bernard worked for a multicultural marketing and communications agency, managing AARP's multicultural markets and engagement account for all Hispanic Latino campaign initiatives nationwide. Bernard has extensive marketing experience and broad expertise in creating unique and dynamic community programming. A double wow, look at this. Welcome, Bernard.
All this wowness today.
I mean, I love when I have amazing panelists.
Elizabeth, I think we have to read your bio. I'm sure we're going to be wowed just the same. Just the same.
Too kind, too kind.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
So, Bernard, can you share a little bit with us?
Absolutely. Well, greetings to everyone tonight. On behalf of AARP New York, I want to welcome all of you to tonight's fraud webinar, Protect Veterans. It's a sponsored series with Schneps Media. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, everyone at Schneps. I am also, aside from that wonderful bio that Elizabeth shared, I am also the Veterans, Military, and Families Lead for AARP New York. And a little bit more about AARP that I'd like to share. We're the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering Americans 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. And we strengthen communities and we advocate for what matters most to families, with a special focus on health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. So if you remember anything about AARP tonight, Remember that we're all about health, wealth, and self. And tonight, we're protecting the wealth of our most vulnerable veterans out there. We've been presenting this series on fraud, and we also have through Schneps a number of in-person shredding events starting April 26th, which I'm sure at the end of this program, Elizabeth will share more details about that. But tonight's free webinar will focus specifically on scams that AARP and our very good friends with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service believe that you should be particularly aware of. If you're a veteran, if you have a loved one who's a veteran, this is really important information for you to arm yourself and be aware of. Operation Protect Veterans is a joint effort that AARP and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service combined created to help veterans and military families fight back and protect themselves from fraud and scams. And not sure if you folks out there know, but if you are a veteran, an active duty service member, even a family member associated with a veteran, you're significantly more likely to be targeted to lose money through scams and fraud. So please pay attention tonight. I'm sure, can't wait for Carroll to share his presentation tonight. And that's why, AARP Fraud Watch Network and our Operation Protect Veterans initiative is working so hard on your behalf, on your families, on people 50 plus and older. So we want to make sure that you protect yourself, your family, and you stay informed. And you can learn more by visiting aarp.org/veterans. But at this time, I definitely want to give, right back to Elizabeth so we can learn from Carroll how we should protect ourselves and our family.
Thank you so much, Bernard. And I did put that website in the chat for everyone.
Good.
Free.com. Please go and get your documents shredded. It's one way that you can protect yourself. But without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Inspector Harris for his very important presentation.
Wow, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, AARP. We do have a longstanding partnership. I have a great depth of appreciation for the membership of AARP and the organization itself and the cause it serves to keep our older Americans connected, informed, and empowered with timely information so that they can avoid scams and schemes, and inclusive within that, the millions of veterans that we have, which definitely for me has been a big part of my life with 3 decades in the Marine Corps, and I was raised by a veteran as well. So a huge part of my life's existence, and it's a bit of a calling for me. And so I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share with your memberships some of the things we're seeing within the Postal Inspection Service. We believe forewarned is forearmed, and we're in for the fight, and we want to be a good battle buddy, and we want to teach people how to be a good battle buddy, as we are all going to be fraud fighters before we're done here tonight. So I want to give you some good information. I want to tell you a little bit about the organization I'm a part of. We'll give you some information on the fraud schemes, and hopefully when we're all done here, you will not only be informed, but you will be inspired to go out there, each one, help one, and make the world a little better place. So with that, if it's all right with you guys, Bernard and Elizabeth, can we bring up the slide deck and we'll
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So as I said, you see the seal there. I'm a United States Postal Inspector. Many people have never heard of that. So I wanted to take a little time, just tell you what that is. It's not always commonly known in the popular culture. Some people that have worked with us understand us, but I thought that would help give you some context. As you can see, it's a seal. We're a federal law enforcement organization, and I'm wearing a badge on my lapel pin, which is the badge that our inspectors carry. So Elizabeth, if we can get the next slide, I'll talk through a couple of bullet points on there. We're more than 200 years old. We were actually established on August 7th of 1775 by Benjamin Franklin himself. That's the man who started the Postal Service and many other great inventions. So we're happy to claim our connection and our heritage point all the way back, which actually predates the birth of the nation. We've always had mail communications and commerce that flows through the Postal Service, and it's as relevant today as it was then. whether it's a sweater you want to give to your grandchild, or it's a check that you want to send someone for a birthday, or you're personally identifying information, something going back and forth with your bank. It's important today, and because it's important, some scammers are going to target us or our piece of America Communications and Commerce. We want to make you ready for those scammers. So again, 200 years old. We secure the mail, the postal system, the postal employees. That's our mission as the oldest federal law enforcement organization here in the nation. Context on the Postal Service so you understand what's going on there. Imagine 128 billion pieces of mail each year. That's a significant volume. So some people have talked about, hey, with the internet, isn't there less mail? There's actually less letter class mail, but you know what there's not less of? Parcels, packages. The Postal Service is the physical manifestation of your good intent in today's environment, especially during the pandemic. We're probably bringing some of you medicines or medications or something that's incredibly important to your health and welfare. In addition to that gift you may want to give a grandchild or another loved one or a friend in your community. So it matters. And it's massive. We're everywhere. So there are it's roughly, I'm gonna give you a rough number, 163 million delivery points in the United States. So now you get the size of the context of what a scammer might want to target. That's a lot of communications and commerce moving. So it does make for a righteous target for someone. And anywhere there's free commerce and communications, freedom provides vulnerability. So we have to be aware as a free society. So that's what we're going to do for you tonight. We're going to highlight some stuff so that you are aware. If the postal inspectors were mandated to protect all of that, so everything I've explained to you is something that is part of the envelope of protection we're providing. That includes investigations and federal law enforcement. So we arrest criminals and we get them prosecuted through federal statutes, the U.S. Attorney's Office, as well as state offices in some instances. But that's our form and our function with the Postal Service. The American public, you have a right to expect your mail is going to be delivered on time and intact. And that's mandated by Congress that the Postal Inspection Service is going to bring to justice these criminals. Last year, as an example, around 7,800 people were given steel bracelets and walked away so that we could help them with their recovery from whatever their criminal activities were. That's a pretty significant volume. We're a small organization. We're not a huge organization, but that's a lot of arrests. That's a lot of enforcement that's going on tied to people that potentially had some mail-related crimes there that they're going to be convicted of.
Wow.
Conviction rate's pretty high. It's around 98% conviction rate. So most of the people that we're targeting, we're doing it for a reason. It's not like we're trying to target the innocent. We're targeting people where we have evidence of crimes, and the conviction rate's really high. So now you're getting the context. One of the things I didn't give you, there's 30,000 postal facilities around the country. So, and over 600,000 employees. That's a lot of movement, and it's 24/7, 365. It keeps the economic engine of the United States flowing good. It's an incredibly important mission set when you stop and you think about what the Postal Service is doing. So what types of crimes are there? I'll tell you a few. There's violent crimes against, sometimes people target our employees or they target our facilities. There's robberies, burglaries, assaults. We have mail theft. We have frauds, mail frauds. I'm telling you about some of the frauds on tonight's presentation. There's dangerous drugs in the mail. We work narcotics. There's also instances where there's dangerous mail. We've had bombs. We had one a few years ago where there was a week of terror across the United States, and we ended up arresting that person. I believe it was on a Thursday morning. So every so often there'll be some evil like that, and we're here to address that evil. And the inspectors have been doing it for over 240 years. So it's a proud tradition, and I'm grateful to be with these wonderful people all over the United States working to serve. Financial crimes is the big part of the frauds, and so we want to prevent that, and that's what we're looking to do here tonight by sharing some of these scams and schemes with you, not only for the general population but for the veteran community as well. Can I have the next slide, please?
Absolutely.
All right. The number of inspectors, just so you're aware, is around 1,400 of us. We're hovering between 1,300, 1,400. So that should give you a context. So I mentioned billions of pieces of mail, and I mentioned there's a little bit over 1,000 of us. So we have an incredible opportunity to serve, and the criminal networks, they're not relenting. and neither are we. We are relentless. So, and you can be relentless by learning some of these things and sharing them, not only with absorbing it yourself, but sharing it with other people you love and care about in your community and in your circle of influence. So criminals do what they do, we do what we do. And in the end, we win, and our free society will continue to reign with great communications and great commerce. There's your pep talk before we get into the bullets of it. All right. On this slide, I just want to emphasize the reason we do this is because we believe that raising awareness around these crimes, as I said in the beginning, is going to empower you to not fall prey to it. First, we need to make you aware. Once you're aware, now you're in the fight and you can be a fraud fighter. So that's part of our mission set. We're going to do the enforcement. We'll arrest people all day, but we can't arrest our way out of this problem. A major part of it is prevention. And that's where you come in. That's where you can help us. That's where spending a little time here makes us all a little better to serve in any capacity we're at and at any age we're at. So thank you, AARP, for giving me the chance to do it. Yeah, next slide, please. All right, so Operation Protect Veterans. I've got some stats here. Ms. Donna Harris, our public information rep, helped me pull up some of the more recent ones. I want to share some of these with you. I think you'll find it. Federal Trade Commission, great organization, another wonderful partner. They report that complaints from consumers who report a connection to the military are on the rise. So they're targeting the military more. One conclusion could be that scammers are intensifying their attempts against the service members. You could also conclude that vets are getting targeted at the same rate as in the past, but lately there's more reporting. So there's some different inferences you can make from what we're hearing here. The numbers show that identity theft continues to be a huge threat. Identity theft is a worldwide epidemic. It's just going on everywhere. Recently, the FTC is reporting an array of scams with certain schemes like imposter scams or government document benefit scams disproportionately hitting our veterans and our service members. In 2021, military consumers reported 210,000 complaints to the FTC, with fraud as the #1 category. So I mentioned probably a dozen different types of things that we're here to enforce, protect, and secure against. Fraud is huge. It's a big category. And that's where you come in. All right, so fraud, identity theft, and then the other scams from the information that we were able to check for our more recent stats. Total dollar loss to the military consumer is over $267 million. It's a 119% increase from the previous year. Now, some of you on the call may be veterans, some of them not, but having been in the Marine Corps for 30 years, I can tell you, you don't get rich from serving in the Marine Corps, and any loss can hurt you if whether you're single or like myself. I have a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful children she's blessed me with. We're not rich people serving in the government or the military or as federal agents, so it matters. And you may have a small income stream as a veteran or an active duty service person, and that's why they'll be targeted, but you're not wealthy. So these losses actually hurt the veterans. It has a bad impact on them. A service member retiree, as I said, they have a steady paycheck, and that is a real draw for a scammer, hence 119% increase. Young service members, they're especially good prey for these scammers. They've got a little bit of money flowing, and they have a high level of trust generally in some cases. So that makes them susceptible to be targeted. So we hear about, as we age, and older Americans becoming more susceptible, maybe their ability to detect deception fades. Well, that in some cases is true, but it's also true that the younger folk, the military veterans who are identified as targets because they have income streams, are also being targeted. These young folks are very comfortable on the internet and operating in these environments, and that creates more risk for them. They also, in some cases, freely share a lot of information. Again, that's creating risk that can put them into a target. Next slide, please. According to a survey by AARP Fraud Watch Network, which is an absolutely fantastic service element within the AARP community, consumers are 40% more likely to fall victim to scams if they're a military veteran. That's an incredible stat, and it backs up everything I just told you about why they would be targeted. Scammers use the pretense of a military bond to trick veterans. They use what I'll call affinity. I just have a natural affinity for anyone who has served in the military. And many people do, even if they weren't in the military. But if you put me in the room with a handful of strangers, within a couple of minutes, we're all going to know who was in the service and who wasn't, what was their branch, and what was their code designator, and where did they serve. And we will inevitably find out that we know people in common. We were in the same combat zones, or we were in the same training areas. And the barriers of normal social discourse, where it takes a while to warm up to somebody, they break down immediately in that military community. Shared hardship creates bonds that can never be matched in any other manner, way, shape, or form. And having been overseas and seen some of the tougher things that can happen in a combat environment, I've experienced those shared bonds that just make me feel a great depth of love for those service members that have done those things. And scammers know that. They prey on it. And I want to do my part. I want to inspire you to do your part, so we can protect those who went into harm's way for us. But the other thing that's going on here is they know that many of the veterans are tender-hearted. So when I see a vet that needs something, I want to help that vet. They know that. They're going to prey on that. And they know we want to support those veteran-related charities and those causes. That's yet another scam angle that we will address tonight. So one of the things that I like to tell veterans, and I think I said it earlier, is to be a battle buddy for each other. I mean, that's a term where if you find yourself in harm's way in the military, battle buddy is a term where we watch each other six. That term applies here when you come home from having been overseas, because you still need a battle buddy. You may not be in the crosshairs of someone with a weapon anymore, but you're in the crosshairs of a criminal, just because you've earned your veteran benefits or your pension. You're actively serving, and they know you have those benefits, and that's going to get you targeted. Next slide, please. So when you respond to an email or a phone call or letter mail that says you've won a lottery or a sweepstakes or a prize contest that you've never entered, you just handed the thief, as you see in the image there, the keys to your safe. And some of these notices make over-the-top claims. You've won millions. I get these solicitations. But before you say no one ever falls for these, let me tell you, it was recently the 4th most reported fraud targeting military veterans. So it may sound preposterous, but if you catch any of us at the right time, at the right place, maybe in a weak moment, you can get us. And the scammers know it, and they're doing it. We all have ups and downs, and the scammers are barraging with such a consistent rate of it's mail, it's calls, it's everything under the sun. They do it enough to where they'll hit someone at the right time and they'll have luck. Hence, we need to talk about it, so that even if someone's in a fog or they're struggling through something, and a lot of the veterans may have post-traumatic stress, so it can be a challenge for them, just navigating life's normal without being targeted. Even if they're in a fog, we can raise this awareness and hopefully they can avoid falling for it. 4th highest scam, that lottery scam, which sounds preposterous. So it's something to be aware of. And typically the way it works is they'll tell you, hey, you've won millions. All you have to do is send us a little money, and then that will free up the process, and it's the administrative fee, and then the millions will flow. It's too good to be true, but let's say you need a little help or you're struggling, you might fall for it. And they hit enough people, and some of them do fall for it. So next slide, please. So I'd like to just run through a handful of these just to orient you around some of them. We did in AARP, it was a few years ago. Some of you might have seen this a few years ago. I still have one of these. This is a pamphlet that we made together with AARP. It highlights some of these scams. I'm going to walk you through a couple of them. We put this, I'm real proud of the partnership and what AARP has done along with the postal inspectors. We put this pamphlet in all those post office lobbies across the entire United States a few years ago, just to warn people about these veteran scams. That was a partnership with AARP that reached millions of people. And since then, having been a veteran and a fan of wanting to help people and avoid frauds, I've been advocating for the veteran community and sharing this information. So some of you saw that pamphlet. That's what these bullet points are about. So I'll just talk you through a couple of them. There's a VA loan scam. That's where they offer you a refinance on a loan that is an unrealistic rate, where they charge you exorbitant fees. So, and I actually get these mailers still. I was out in DC for years where Donna and Harris and I were working together and doing all sorts of wonderful things. And I just came to LA. I now live out here in California. And these mailers, these scammers know where the veterans are. I'm a veteran and moved to California, and I'm getting vet scam solicitations here in my new residence in California. They're selling your names, they're on list. So wherever you're at, you could potentially get these things. And these VA loan scams, they'll send you things where it looks official. Sometimes it looks like it's from the Veterans Administration itself. So you have to be very, very careful about these solicitations you're responding to. The scammers are good at what they do. And a loan scam is just one of many that's out there. The other thing that we have seen, and this one really gets me, I receive care from the Veterans Administration. They've been absolutely wonderful to me. So I'm familiar with the Veterans Administration policies and procedures and the look and feel, their modus operandi. I know that if I need to update my care file with the VA, I don't have to pay a fee to do it, but not everybody knows that. Maybe you're a young veteran who sustained an injury in the combat zone and you're now at home and you don't know these things. Well, some of these scammers are approaching these folks and they're telling them, hey, yeah, you just got to give me $1,000 and I'm going to get your file updated for you. And you're going to be given this, executive level service, triaged up front. People will fall for that. But if you know it now and you get approached, now you won't fall for it. Or if you know a young vet that's come home and is just navigating VA for the first time, VA, it's filled with good people, but it's complicated. It's complicated. I'm not too proud to tell you I've got multiple master's degrees, and I struggle sometimes trying to navigate it. It's a challenge. Life is hard. You got to be ready for that. Scammers prey on those rub points where life can be hard. And if you're an injured veteran and maybe you've got some brain fog because you've had traumatic brain injury, that's happened to a lot of them. It's hard to navigate. You need a battle buddy. You need someone to watch out for you. If you're that grandparent who's got a child who falls into that category, and there's thousands of veterans out here now that are still navigating their care. You could be that advocate. You could be that ear. You could be that sound resource, or maybe you need someone to be it for you. So you can be the battle buddy, and you need a battle buddy. We all need to pause. We need to breathe, and we need to connect. Those are the phrases I like to remember and leave people with: pause, breathe, and connect. Some of these sales tactics for these scams, they come at you high pressured and fast. Their whole intent is for you not to pause. Their whole intent is to try to get a muscle movement reaction from you quickly to separate you from your hard-earned funds and benefits. But if you pause, you take a breath, you connect with a battle buddy, you're going to see it for what it is. The fog of war will clear and you will know it's a fraudster. And then you can report it. So pause, breathe, and connect. The other one that's on here, secret veteran benefit scam. Hey, it's too good to be true. It's probably not true. They'll tell these vets that there's this secret benefit, and they'll seek to say, hey, you got to give me your social security number and your date of birth, and then you can get into the secret benefit and there'll be money flowing your way. Some people will fall for that. It sounds preposterous, but it works. A pension poaching scam. So especially for some of the young folk, they may not realize that this annuity they've earned, if they're retired or disabled retired, however it may fold, that they'll be told, hey, we're going to give you 20 grand up front and then you'll be free, but we get the rest of your annuity for the rest of your life. And if someone's young and they're not smart about what a future annuity income stream could be, they could fall into this trick. So people actually do that scam. It's something to watch out for. Is you shouldn't be selling out your future income streams for a short-term gain. But if you're not used to thinking in financial terms, you're susceptible to it. A lot of the military folk are really good at figuring out how to put lead down range 1,000 miles away under stress while mortars fall around them. But what they're not good at is figuring out the net present value on an income spreadsheet, because that's not where their focus is. Scammers prey on that. We need to protect those that think about what it's like to go in the harm's way so that they don't get taken advantage of because they put their energy into protecting us instead of thinking about net present value on a spreadsheet. Aid and attendance scam. Aid and attendance is another thing. So aid and attendance is an income-based qualification with the Veterans Administration. The thing about it is you can't have a bunch of assets. So sometimes people, maybe they're close to qualifying for the aid and attendance support for the Veterans Administration. Scammers will approach them and they'll say, look, we're going to create a trust. We're going to put your assets into this trust. You'll still control it. And then you'll be qualified for the aid and attendance income stream from the Veterans Administration. And won't this be nice? And they'll wave a few $1,000s every month in front of them tax-free. Well, the reality is they're asking them to defraud the government. And once they put their assets into the trust, what do you think the criminal is going to do with those assets? They're not coming back to the veteran, and they're gone. And now the veteran's been manipulated into doing something unethical. They're separated from their assets. It's actually happening. That's the aid and attendance scheme. Aid and attendance is the name of the VA benefit that is tied to that particular scheme. So that's a handful of them right there. Can I get the next slide, please?
These scammers are so sophisticated, and they're so, it's like you can't even blame yourself for falling for it because they're so good. So
they're really good.
So
Elizabeth, they are so good. They could sell a ketchup popsicle to a person wearing white gloves in the heat of summer. That's how good they are.
Yeah.
They're incredibly good salesmen. And if you know a little bit of veteran talk, and in some cases, the scammers are veterans. Not all the veterans are good people. So if someone can speak a little bit of the lingo, they can get in the circle, break down that trust, and then they're assessing you. All right, they'll figure out one of these that they can come at you with. That's the challenge of a free society.
Yeah.
But we are a thinking society, and we can help each other. And that's what we're doing tonight. All right, so here we have, you can see up there, these are some of the tactics that are used to scam veterans. They include solicitations, debt-related charitable donations, posing, and I mentioned posing as a Veterans Administration employee to get personally identifying information, because once you get that information, it's actionable. You can sell it on the dark web. You can open up lines of credit. I talked about buying the pension buyouts, recruiting veterans for employment that doesn't even exist. That happens. Some of the veterans come back, they need jobs. It's not always easy to translate. Hey, I just spent 20 years active duty in the Marine Corps. I specialize in cold, wet, hungry, and in harm's way. Where do I apply that in the civilian world? It's tough. The veterans aren't necessarily oriented on being salesmen, or they're wonderful people. So some people need jobs. So there's recruiting scams tied to this. They're trying to help the veterans navigate that transition from a military life into a civilian life, which has completely different vernacular, culture, and ways of operating. And the transition isn't always easy for a veteran. If you spend 20 years, I can tell you, 30 years in the Marine Corps, there's some different culture subsets in the Marine Corps than operating when I would go to church with grandma as a kid, just different. So I had to be able to do the transition between the two. So some of us will struggle with that, especially the ones that, for those of us who are injured and come back and we're navigating that as well. Sometimes what they're going to do, as you can see in the example on the slide, they want to create that urgency I talked about. That urgency, your son and daughter has been injured. I mean, the send me money now, that type of thing. They can't talk to you. Sometimes they'll even pretend to be the son or daughter and contact the grandparents, called the grandparent scam. And the grandparents not quite sure, they don't even recognize the voice of their own child, but in some cases they can be convinced to wire money somewhere because they'll create that urgency. And how do we counter that urgency? We pause, we breathe, we connect, we reach out to a battle buddy, a trusted resource. That's how we beat them. We can stop all of this. The one thing about fraud is we all have to participate in it. You have to be a part of it. If I want to steal some funds fraudulently from Elizabeth, most of the scams would involve her somehow being complicit with me because I convinced her to do something that's not in her interest. So I'm not going to steal from Elizabeth, but she now knows. All right, next slide.
I fell in.
Are you ready for me to start that, or give you a second, right?
Okay, yeah, let me go give a quick intro here. This is Mark Gurley. He's a veteran. He fell for it hook, line, and sinker. It's a scheme where people that are interested in obtaining government benefits. We've talked a bunch about all these different benefits and their names, and they can be complicated. Well, he's one who fell for it. He thought he was dealing with an appropriate entity, and he wasn't. So I'll let the story be told. You'll hear from a postal inspector, and you'll hear from Mark.
I fell in hook, line, and sinker. And
Matt Gurley is still angry with himself for getting lured into the Ponzi scheme run by Gina Palacini.
I did one of the most stupid things I ever did in my lifetime. I wrote her a check for $100,000.
Palacini approached Gurley and other elderly victims, many of them veterans, offering to help them obtain government benefits.
I thought she was representing the VA. I was even more so convinced when she freely invited me to her house, introduced me to her family.
Gurley says he truly believed he was getting benefits available to him because he was a veteran.
So what she would do was convince them to reallocate, diversify their assets into an annuity, into the family trust.
But instead of putting that money in the annuity, she would put it in her business expense account.
She would then wire that money from her expense account to personal accounts and then just write checks like it was her job.
Postal inspectors say the mother of four spent most of the money on her children.
She would take her kids on vacations, elaborate vacations.
Like most Ponzi schemes, Palacini's scam unraveled.
Once the victim started asking questions, that's when the excuses started coming out.
In all, 13 victims lost $2 million.
It's heartbreaking. They worked their entire lives for anywhere from being a firefighter to a pastor to being in the military. She targeted, again, those that were elderly, but also those that were veterans.
Mac Gurley says he's learned a lesson and is less trusting, but targeting the elderly, he believes, is inexcusable.
They have reduced themselves to the lowest rank in the human chain.
So I view people like Mark Gurley as heroes for helping us to stand up and show what these scammers are doing. It's, if you have, and some of you may have been a victim of crimes in your life, it takes some real internal resolve, and it's uncomfortable to stand up and to share the story if you've been a victim of crime. But Mark's heart is pure and strong, and he's willing to endure it because he wants to help protect others so that they know what happened with him. So my thanks to Mark and others like him. I did have the privilege of a few years ago testifying before the Senate in reference to veteran scams and sharing with them some of the things we're seeing. And one of the victims from a case we had solved came in and told the story. And testifying in front of the Senate can be a little bit of an uncomfortable experience. It's not a natural day for most. And this person who had been a victim came in, told the whole story, with the whole point being that we're gonna shine a light into the darkness and make sure we're protecting people. Next slide, please. There we go. So service members have specific protections from any sorts of lending abuse, and that's thanks to the Service Members Civil Relief Act. According to the law, many protections involve time extensions for those on active duty. These will protect them from foreclosure and eviction and allow them more time to file lawsuits. With these protections in place, you would think service members would have fewer foreclosure complaints than the civilian population. The law also caps interest charges on consumer debt incurred prior to military service at 6%. Anything above that's forgiven, not deferred. Service members should seek help from their state attorneys generals, and we've worked with many attorney generals around the country. I've worked with the ones here in California. They're great organizations, and they can help someone with these types of military issues. So that's a good point of awareness. Next slide. So remember, you want to take proactive measures. You should shield your personal information. This is an important point. Enrolling credit monitoring services, for a small fee, you can do that. Or, and there's no fee for this, you can regularly check your credit reports for questionable activity. I do that as a person, and I recommend you do it as well. And I recommend you encourage those in your circle of influence to do it as well. You can place, if you know someone in your circle that's getting mobilized or they're on active duty, they can place an active duty alert for a credit report, but just anyone can place an alert for a credit report. This requires the lenders to take extra steps to confirm an identity before extending credit. And that's what the scammers do once they get the information. Those alerts can help you. It's a little bit of extra administrative work, but it can help protect you. There are 3 credit reporting agencies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And as I said, you can get a free report from each one of them every year. So how does that translate? If you want to, you could get a free report every 4 months and space it out. So your window of exposure, absolutely free, again, no charge, every 4 months, you can get a look. You can see if someone's got your identity and if they're opening lines of credit that don't make sense. So that's, you have the options to use the monitoring services, but every 4 months is a pretty healthy pulse. So I'll encourage you to consider that, especially if you've ever been exposed to identity theft or you think you get exposed in the future.
That's a great idea. Great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I never realized it till a few years ago. It's like, oh yeah, why don't we just tell people, hey, every 4 months do this? It's
Right.
and you don't have to worry about a cost for it. Do not, you only provide your social security number when it's absolutely necessary. A lot of organizations are getting better about that. They're giving you other identity numbers. That's something. And only provide it to trusted merchants and lenders. Next slide, please. All right. You're going to want to have a durable power of attorney before your loved ones deploy or go overseas. If you have someone that's going to do that, I know I did that before I went away. I had very heartfelt conversations with my spouse because sometimes military members go places where there's a chance you may not come home. So you want to get all that set up. Or if you do come home, you may not be in a capacity to help for yourself. So you want to think about that. It's a huge thing. And that actually is just good practice in life in general, for any age, even if you're not a deploying military member, right? So that's just a good life practice to have a trusted family member or a friend or somebody that can help you with your affairs if it's needed. So not something to take lightly. Choose wisely. Password protect your mobile devices. We've got these digital devices now, and in my walk in life, we were just joking about this morning while I was in the gym with one of the agents here. I carry 2 of these things all the time. This many computers stronger than what took us to the moon years ago. It's an incredibly powerful thing. It has all my identity information, my banking information, my family's information. I have those things password locked. I hope you do too. If you don't do it today, it's exposure. There are devices and ways people can lift information off of these. You may say, why is the postal inspector even mentioning this? Once they steal your identity, all sorts of things happen, and it can involve the mail. We find the exposure numerous ways. So it's not just the mail how we find the exposure. So I'll encourage you to lock down your devices. Keep your computer current with good antivirus software, spyware, firewalls, all of those things. If you're not smart about it, find a battle buddy who is. I know my family with my parents, I'm the battle buddy for all the computer needs. So I do my best to be patient with them because sometimes it's a challenge to navigate those things. Those things are updating and changing rapidly. It's an incredible evolution. I am proud to say that my parents are on smartphones now and I'm able to communicate with them. So that was an evolution for us. That's a little personal victory for me. For those of you on the devices, if you're comfortable with it, you might have some friends who aren't, and they might have some exposure. And this might be an opportunity for you to be their battle buddy, encourage them to lock it down, maybe share some best practices you picked up on the way if you're already one of the ones who's smart and good with it. All right, limit the amount of personal information you're putting out there that you may post on social media. I'm in my kids, I have teenagers, they tell me I'm on the old people social media because I'm on Facebook. Sometimes people put lots of information out there, and that can create exposure, and scammers will approach you. I've been approached by scammers on those social media channels. So that's another place to watch out. Be careful with your exposure there. Next slide, please. Extra cautious about cold calls. The time I spent with the Senate, we did discuss cold calls and how to stop them. The Senate did some great work. I'm grateful to them for what they've done to try to reduce the robocalls that jam up our phones. They still happen. Those people are crazy and they're going to continue to do it, but many of the ways they've been stopped through some of the things the Senate did, and I'm grateful that that's happened. When they get people on the phone, some of us we're susceptible to answering the phone, and someone on the other end tries to develop what I called an affinity with us on the phone to get a connection to run one of these scams and separate us from our funds. You have to watch out for that affinity. I've told the people in my personal life, my own parents, you just don't answer a phone number that you don't know. It can go to voicemail, and if it's a legitimate business, they'll leave you something. You can call them back. You don't have to answer the phone. Their generation, I think, believed it was because you were supposed to answer the phone back then. I'm telling them, don't answer the phone. unless you can see the name on a mobile device that you know the name, or if it's at home and you don't have the caller ID, just let it go into the voicemail. And then if it's appropriate and not a scam, they'll leave you something and you can call them back. Now, scams will leave a message too. So again, you need to have what my middle son calls his spidey senses. You got to be alert like Spider-Man and ready for that. And that's why we're sharing this information. You can use your spidey senses to be a battle buddy. My son will be proud I mentioned him. The frauds on the phones, they're continuing. Okay, the charities, I want to hit on that real quick. You can check what's a good charity. There's lots of ways to check. I've personally given to a handful of military charities. Both we've volunteered manpower as well as we've given money. My wife and I met her in the Marine Corps, so she's a bit of a hero to me. I love her dearly, and we want to continue to help people that we've known over our years. Not all of them are still here, but some of them are, and some of them have been impacted, and we want to help them. So we've given to some of these charities, taken my sons, let them see these veterans, some of them with visible impacts to their life and some of them not, but we're helping. But we need to know what's a good charity. I don't want to be scammed. I don't want to just throw my money to the breeze to a scammer. So here's some ways you can check on those charities. CharityNavigator.com. That's a great one. You can check. You can find out, hey, is this legit? Is this good? Is this reputable? That's a wonderful place to go. Better Business Bureau. That's another one. They can help you navigate it. So those are two good ways that you can pause, breathe, be a battle buddy, connect, and make sure if you're going for a charity that it's going to be a good one. All right, next slide. Highly trained AARP Foundation volunteers, they're able to answer questions and offer peer counseling. I talk about being a battle buddy. AARP is our battle buddy. They're helping people. They support, they have referral services. They know where to tell you to go to report if you're not sure who you want to report to. Some of the people that work on the Fraud Watch Network and work with AARP were victims themselves. They're heartfelt, just trying to serve and help people avoid it, just like Mark we saw earlier. It's a great organization. You see the number there, 877-908-3360. Wonderful place to go to get help. They're a battle buddy. Military Consumer, it's a website that's operated by the federal government. It empowers military and veteran communities with tools to be informed consumers and tips to avoid fraud. So that's another place you can go. That's military.consumer.gov. Pretty easy to remember. Military.consumer.gov. That's another great reference. Fraud complaints can be filed with the Federal Trade Commission. Absolutely outstanding organization. They ingest those and they channel them. And when there's criminal actions that can be worked against, they'll do that. And we partner with them actively. It's a wonderful place to report things as well. The Veterans Administration website lists more than 70 different service organizations where you can find help. Another place for help. And some of those could be the American Legion, AMVETS, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Disabled American Veterans. If any of you are a member of Disabled American Veterans, I'll be speaking at their national convention this summer down in Orlando. So if any of you make it there, come say hello to me. I want to shake your hand and thank you. The VA's website for the Veteran Service Organizations is va.gov/VSO. Next slide, please. Okay, remember, minimize your personal information exposure. We've hit that theme a handful of times. Use caution when disclosing checking account numbers, credit card numbers, other personal financial data on any website. Make sure you got a secure authentication there. You can see the key there in the browser. If you subscribe to an online service, and we have many of those in my family now, where we're subscribing to things, whether it's videos we're watching or other things, a lot of online interface now. You may be asked to give credit card information. And I know my family and I are actively doing that. When you enter an interactive service site, be aware con artists may seek to confirm or mimic a website to trick you, or you get an email and it looks like it's official and they're trying to get you to go to what's a fake temporary website that looks familiar, but it's not quite right. You have to pay attention because they'll ask for your password to log in or your credit card to confirm. There's lots of scams like that. And yes, I can pivot back to the mail in some cases. So watch out for that. Whether it hits the mail or not, we want you protected. The Postal Inspection Service wants you to avoid that. So that's another place where if you're not sure about something, you're getting these solicitations, you're looking at a site, and maybe you're not comfortable, you're not used to dealing with it, pause, breathe, connect, find your battle buddy, you'll be protected. Next slide, please. And of course, on the previous, I already hammered home, we can space out using the Experian TransUnion, so you get that. All right. If you think that your family member's been victimized, here's some things you can do. If the crime involved the U.S. mail, you can tell us here at the Postal Inspection Service, 877-876-2455. That number is ripping and roaring, 24/7, 365, and we've been there for hundreds of years. If you've been victimized and you've got a mail nexus to that crime, let us know. Let us know. You can also report it to us on the website, uspis.gov. Then there's a lot of good crime prevention tips, tactics, short videos, things to help you there if you want to look at the fraud prevention items. But you can also report a crime if you're in the unfortunate circumstance where you've been victimized and you got a mail-related crime, you can report it there. And you can see quite a bit of veteran fraud information there. We have a special section of the website with that. And if you were so inclined, you could watch my entire Senate testimony on there on the subject, where I got to interact with senators I was very thankful for. That they were focusing on how to help protect our veterans.
Inspector
If you're
Harris,
Go ahead.
I know you also have a YouTube channel that I will be sharing that has
Awesome.
many videos on it as well. So I'll be sharing that link here and also in the email everyone gets tomorrow.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Yeah. So yeah, we have that. We have social media. We have Facebook, of course, the YouTube, hundreds of videos. So for years, the video you saw with Mark earlier, he was one of hundreds of videos like that we did, where we partnered with, I call them heroes, these victims that are willing to stand up and go, yep, they got me, but I want to tell the story because I don't want it to happen to anybody else. We did that a few hundred times for all these different schemes over the years. We've saved those and put those videos on the YouTube channel. So any of our partner organizations or people who are being approached, they can look at that as a reference. It's a nice reference. If you're victimized, we talked about those credit bureaus, you need to notify them if you're victimized. You want them to know, you call one of them, get a hold of the fraud unit and let them know, hey, this is what's going on. You want to pull your credit report and you want to see, hey, is my identity being used to open up other lines of credit, right? Just like you check, if you're not victimized, if you're victimized, it's an immediate default check. You want to go and check that. You need to contact your banks, your creditors. You need to notify them by phone and writing. You need to keep a logbook of these interactions, who you talk to, when you talk to. You need to change your financial pins and passwords. There's a lot going on. Retain that logbook of the correspondence as you're navigating that. And if this happens to you, and I hope it doesn't, but if it does, Fraud Watch Network, again, an incredible resource to help you navigate it. Some of them victims themselves, they know how to help.
Thank you for mentioning the Fraud Watch Network on this slide. Carroll, I have a question for you. On that slide, freezing your credit report, would that be another bullet point to what what to do if you're a victim? You should freeze your credit, or at least put a fraud alert on all your credit reports immediately?
Absolutely. Absolutely
Okay.
should freeze it. I would totally suggest that.
And would you say that, generally speaking, even if before you are a victim, would freezing all that credit, unless you're going out and buying a car or that you're planning to lease something or open up, should we be in the habit of just freezing that credit and then unfreezing it when we need to?
In today's world, it's not an unhealthy thing to do. The challenge is with rapid commerce cycles, it does create the extra administrative burden of you having to undo it to make these transactions happen in some instances. So there is some burden there, but it's a very personal decision. You have to weigh the pro-con benefit of where you're at in your life and what you have going on. It's certainly more secure. So it's a safer thing to do, Bernard. It's a wonderful point you bring up.
I do have, there are some questions. Elizabeth, I don't know if you want to go through just quickly in the chat and make sure that we answer people's questions. But while you do that, I do want to ask you, Carroll, with the credit, you mentioned that the credit reports or the credit bureaus have a fraud department to contact. So are they the same people to just, like, if you see something on your report, are they the same people that you can dispute it? And how quickly do they react to that to clean that mess up?
Bernard, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how they're all individually set up, so I'm sorry, I don't have the detail level information there, but I can say this. I trust the credit report folks, and I have no hesitation telling people, reach out to them and follow their lead on how they put you into the right departments. I have no issues with trusting them at all. I absolutely trust.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We
Thank
do
you.
have a question from Celeste. You know, she had an issue where her elderly uncle received calls asking for money on behalf of a veterans program, and then they became aggressive and they threatened they were going to come get him, that they knew where he lived. They notified the police, but who else should they have called to report this? You know, would it be beneficial to, is there another arm that is more focused on this type of fraud? You know,
It's absolutely, the Federal Trade Commission is a wonderful place to report. If you know there's a mail nexus, we're a wonderful place to report. And tied to that, we've seen that numerous times over and over. I want to share with you that, so sometimes they will literally just use Google Earth, and they're sitting in another country. They'll take a picture from Google Earth that looks like the front of your house, and they'll tell you, hey, I'm out here and I'm going to come get you. And it seems real if you don't know that you can just get these pictures off the internet. So they can create the exigency, the time pressure that goes against what we say. We say pause, breathe, and connect to get the answers. They're trying to make where you don't do that because you think, hey, these crazy people are outside my house, they're going to hurt me. So you do want to tell local police if you're feeling threatened. Federal Trade Commission is a great place to report fraud. And when you know there's a mail nexus, USPIS.gov is a great place to report fraud.
terrific. And Bernard, I see you put in the chat too, identitytheft.gov. Right there is that link that you can use to be able to do that. So I think, you know, reporting it to as many places as possible is great, because all of these places are feeding into different arms that can help to protect people in the future, as well as help you too. We have a question. Is it, because you mentioned about social security numbers, is it what scenarios is it appropriate to give out social security number? I mean, I know that a lot of times they ask for the last 4 digits, and I feel like, oh my God, you could ruin my life with just the last 4 digits. So what is it, you know, what do you recommend people do to make that decision, yes or no? On
well, they definitely, they want to pause and think.
Mm-hmm.
Pause. I don't have a ready-made list of instances where I'll give it up, but I can tell you, you go to a doctor's office, sometimes they're going to need that type of information from you. I know when I deal with the Veterans Administration, they have all my information. So there's going to be some personal judgment there. There are some transactions where you're going to know it's not appropriate. You don't need this, and you can give a little pushback.
But Carroll, you're right. I mean, doctors' offices, and sadly, we hear it all the time. So much data breach issues at the same places that should be protecting you. There's a lot of data breach, issues. Your companies that you've worked for can have a data breach, and all of a sudden your identity is out there. So
I mean,
that's why the credit monitoring, right?
Reminds me too, when you're talking about the United States Postal Service and you're talking about documents, you're talking about print, that's why these shredding events are so important, so that you make sure that, any document, old tax returns, any documents that's going to have your social security number or any personal information are shredding. So Schneps Media is having these shredding events that are sponsored by AARP New York. Please, please, please go to shred4free.com, and you can find, we have them in the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Nassau County, and Suffolk County are free places where you can go with bags and bags of paper and shred them so that no one else can get their hands on them and do bad with them. And I think, Inspector Harris, your word on pause, I think that is so important, and feel free to ask questions. Because I think a lot of the times when people call and they're very official, or a letter comes in the mail and it seems very official, we, as being good students or good citizens, we tend to not ask enough questions. And anyone who is really needing your social security number is not going to mind answering questions. So I think pausing is such an amazing thing to really incorporate and ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so many vets are compliant to authority if you were a military person. So when someone like you say they seem official, oh, okay, and I'm a team player, so here I go. Here's my stuff. No, we need to pause, breathe, and connect.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's an incredible.
Donna just put something in the chat. If it doesn't feel right to give it, don't. Never give it on the phone, and think of any cold calls as a scam. The telephone should be considered a one-way tool. If you didn't initiate the call, just hang up. And I agree on the do not answer, right? Don't, but sadly, we know at AARP that there's a growing number of our elders that are faced with isolation, that they're alone. They get a friendly phone call, and that's all they need to stay on that phone long enough to have a conversation. So I agree with you, Donna. The cold calling is considered a scam, but for an elderly person who doesn't have anyone showing up regularly to check in on them, that friendly voice is enough for them to fall into a scam. And that's what we have to, if we have older people in our lives, make it a point to check in on them, to ask them questions. That's why we need a buddy, as much as possible. I agree. The grandparent scam, honestly, Carol, I hear more and more about the grandparent scam. And what I feel that one of the main reasons why that's so prevalent is because grandparents today are not as in touch with their if they knew what was going on with their grandkids' lives, if grandkids regularly checked in on them, if they heard their voices and knew what they sounded like, maybe it wouldn't happen as often. But there's some, families are displaced and people aren't living together anymore. And, it's a different way of life today. And I think that's that's why I make it a point that our kids need to, I tell kids everywhere, make sure you're checking in on your grandparents as regularly as possible. This is great information, Carol. Thank you so much for this presentation. I want to just remind everybody, we've mentioned the Fraud Watch Network a number of times. Again, it's a free resource available to the public through AARP. You can sign up and become a member. And for more information about AARP, on scams, go to aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. We also have a toll-free number that you can report that scam. And if you have been a fallen, victim to the scam, it's 1-877-908-3360. Also, if you want to connect with AARP Long Island on a number of other events, I mean, we're here today, we're talking about some serious stuff, fraud and scams, but we have a number of at-home activities, classes. We talk about health and wellness. We have a number of health and wellness series coming up. You can talk to a doctor. You can talk about mental health. So we have a number of events coming up and volunteer opportunities. So please look us up at aarp.org/near-you. And you can also look us up on Facebook at facebook.com/AARP Long Island. And, Carol, you said something, forewarned is, finish that for me because I loved it. And then I couldn't write it down fast enough. Forewarned is?
Forearmed.
Forearmed. That's
forewarned is forearmed and you're in the fight.
I like that.
I love that.
I'll say this, DTA, don't trust anyone. DTA. It's where we're at today, sadly, but.
Well, I'm so appreciative to AARP. Bernard, thank you so much for being here, sponsoring this event. Inspector Harris, thank you so much for this critical information. You are really armed when you have this kind of information, and this has just been chock full. In the chat, I put in the AARP Fraud Network phone number, the email address, the website. You'll get all of that via email tomorrow, as well as where you can go on the Postal Inspectors to report a crime, as well as the YouTube link to the USPS press room there where you can get more information and watch videos and protect yourselves and call your grandma and grandpa and be in touch. Let's be everyone's buddy. Let's buddy for each other and support each other and stop these scammers from hurting our veterans and for hurting anyone. So again, thank you, Inspector Harris. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you so much to our attendees for joining us this evening. I wish you all to stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Have a great night, everyone.
You have a great night.